Hi, everyone. Welcome. I think we've let everybody in that we can at the moment. My name is Trevor Williams. I'm with Global Atlanta. This is the Consular Conversations webinar today. Thank you so much for joining us for this latest edition where we're focusing on 4 dynamic diplomats and all female from the Caribbean here. So we're excited to continue the series today. And for a while, we had been focusing on, and it still will focus on some during this remote environment, some of the diplomats that live outside of Atlanta and Georgia and cover our state, trying to lean into the remote format a bit. But today, all of our diplomats are based here, covering Georgia and the Southeast, and we're so excited to have them. I'm going to introduce them in one moment. First of all, before we jump into it, I'm going to ask our sponsor, Miller and Martin, Joe Delisle from our sponsor Miller and Martin, to say a few words of welcome. Miller Martin's been sponsoring the Consular Conversation series really since its inception way back in, I think, 2016. So we're coming up on 5 years of doing this, which is pretty exciting, and have covered almost every consulate here in the state so far. So we're excited to have y'all here. Joe, why don't you give us a few comments and then we'll keep it going.
Sounds good. Thank you, Trevor. Good day, everyone. I think Trevor was right. We've covered all of the consulates more than once in many cases. I'm very happy to have everybody together today and look forward to maybe celebrating our 5-year anniversary in person later this year as we all continue to get vaccinated and hopefully continue to improve our health. I'm a partner in the corporate group at Miller & Martin, work a lot in the international area, and our work with Trevor and his team through Global Atlanta on the Consular Conversations is an outgrowth of our international practice. Our firm is part of a international affiliation of law firms called the World Law Group that has about 59 firms, about 20,000 lawyers in about 90 countries. And we work a lot with cross-border transactions and legal matters. And it's a pleasure of ours to host everyone today virtually. We look forward to everybody getting back together in person as we come up on this 1-year anniversary of trying to do our jobs and live our lives in this virtual format. And it's our pleasure to have our work with Trevor and his team, and also to have the 4 consul generals here today, and also Consul General Armbrister-Rolle for the second time. It looks like I think we were all together just over a year ago in January of 2020, if my notes are correct. So it's good to see your face again and look forward to hearing your comments. And thank you for the opportunity to be together.
Thanks so much, Joe. Really appreciate it. And really appreciate your support. Another supporter of today's event is the Decide DeKalb Development Authority, and we thank them for their help in getting the word out. I know DeKalb County is one of the hubs, if not the hub, for the Caribbean diaspora community here in the state. And I just wanted to thank Sunny Anderson, who's on the call with us from Decide DeKalb. Thank you so much. She's going to post her contact in the chat. The Development Authority works to diligently bring and retain first-class businesses to the county and facilitate job creation in the county to get residents in DeKalb working, of which I am one. So good work. Keep it going. So thank you so much. And I know we've got at least one of the consular offices. I know Astra's office is in DeKalb County as well, and not sure where Elaine is based, but I know Marva is very well integrated into DeKalb County, and the Guyanese community is very strong there. So just to jump in, because we don't have, we have about an hour. We want to make sure we maximize our discussion time. We're going to go ahead and jump into the introductions of our consuls, and then we'll start the conversation from there. So I'm not going to read all their bios, but I'm going to kind of run through them a little bit and give a sense for who they are. One of the other firsts for this event is this is the first time we've had honorary consuls participating. And so we've got the Astra Armbrister-Rolle, who's the Consul General of the Bahamas. She is covering 10 states here in the U.S. Southeast. She was a nonprofit professional before joining the diplomatic corps of her country. Served as Consul General since November 2017, so she's got a lot of experience in Atlanta. She's become, a strong voice here. She even earned a proclamation I'm seeing from the Atlanta City Council for her humanitarian efforts in the Hurricane Dorian crisis, which hit the Bahamas, if I recall correctly, in September 2019. So we had hurricane, then pandemic, and Astra's been working really hard with the community. We also have on the call our other Consul General from Haiti, is Roudelyne Nogar. Roudelyne, thank you so much for being with us. She's the Consul General of Haiti, as I said. Represents the Haitian government and interacts with the Haitian community in Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, North and South Carolina, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. So she's got a big job. And I know the Haitian community has kind of ballooned over the past decade in this region. There's been a lot more folks coming over, and we are glad to have them here. I'm so glad to note that she has been promoted over the past year from head of mission to Consul General. But even before she joined the diplomatic corps, she worked with Haiti's most vulnerable populations on water, hygiene, and sanitation. She worked with nonprofits. She was in charge of the Haitian government's Social and Economic Assistance Fund, which supported Haitian women living in disadvantaged neighborhoods. And then before coming to Atlanta, she worked for the Parliament, the Haitian Parliament, as administrator, and later became coordinator for the President of the House of Representatives in that office. And I will say, to my chagrin, I have not visited all of your countries, but Haiti is the one that I visited. So I'm excited to say that. And we went about almost 10 years ago now on a reporting trip to look at what Atlanta companies and organizations were doing down there, particularly in the wake of the earthquake there, which I know there's just been, last year was the 10th anniversary. So we can talk a little bit about that. And we've got our two honorary consuls. I'm not sure if Marva Jacobs of Guyana has joined us, but I do know that Elaine Bryan, our honorary consul for Jamaica and Georgia, is here. Elaine, thank you so much for joining us. She's got a long history and bio as well, but I'll try to do my best to keep it somewhat brief. She's a realtor. She is an entrepreneur. She's done some TV engagements. She's the founder and president of the Grant Bryant Center in Atlanta, and she's a registered Microsoft education partner. And I know she's just started a really interesting series with the Jamaican diaspora that I want to talk to her about, with pioneers of the Jamaican diaspora community that have come to Georgia, which I know it's pretty strong here. So, and then once we get Marva Jacobs, if she's able to join us, we'll actually introduce her at that time. But for now, I think, why don't each of you maybe start with Astra? Why don't each of you talk about your communities here? Tell us a little bit, give us kind of a baseline of the communities that you represent, and size of the population, maybe first arrivals here, and how that community's grown recently. Just give us a sense for what we're talking about. And Astra, you are off the video right now. I don't know if that is for a reason, but maybe we'll start with Roudelyne. Tell us about how the Haitian community's grown over the last few years and what your office does.
Well, good morning, everyone. And first of all, I would like to thank you, Trevor, for having me. And I'm very honored to be part of this event alongside these powerful and strong women. So, like you said, I joined the consulate last year. In June 2019, and now I'm currently the Consul General with a fast-growing Haitian and Haitian American population, and especially in Georgia, with more than 80,000 Haitian American. So it's I can say it's a pretty big community. So the job was not so easy with the pandemic. So, but we are doing our best to stay connected to the community, to assist them, and even to link to our local authority here in order to give them a better assistance.
Great. Thank you so much. 80,000. I didn't realize it was quite that big. I mean, I know there were a lot of folks. You're talking
And
Haitians and Haitian Americans, or just Haitian
Asian
Americans?
and Asian and Asian American. And we are still waiting for the 2020 census data to update our data.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll get a boost there because I know recent years have brought quite a number of new people. What about you, Elaine? I know the Jamaican community is pretty active here, and you know, it seems like everywhere you turn, you meet a new Jamaican friend in Atlanta. You know, whether it's at the airport or in professional firms around the state. So tell us a bit about the diaspora community here.
Yes, of course, greetings everyone and welcome. Of course, we have over, I would say, estimate of 100,000 Jamaicans. However, that's not official. I'm giving you this number based on the persons who sign up to my office and who come to us with the Georgia license. And there has been a big recent influx over the last 5 years of Jamaicans coming from other states. So it has shifted the numbers here greatly. And I know because we get the phone calls and the emails, and we are aware of the numbers, and we are happy to have all the Jamaicans. Also the neighboring states like the Alabama, North and South Carolina, they call every day. And so there's a big interest in Georgia. And we hope to have the census results soon, which we will post on www.jamaicanconsulateatlanta.org. So you'll know the accurate numbers when the census comes out shortly. We have many Jamaicans living in DeKalb County, Gwinnett, Fulton County, Cobb County, and we have a lot of mature Jamaicans who I met and discovered them in the last year when I made an effort with a team of us to meet the Jamaicans. Some of them in their 90s, in their 80s, they came to Georgia in the 50s, 60s. And some of them are still around. One or two have unfortunately passed away. But because of the pandemic, we made it our mission to seek out these Jamaicans who would normally be isolated, and they had a lot to offer.
Definitely. Yeah, I love that initiative, and I want you to talk about it a little bit more a little bit later. But I also love the terminology mature. I'm going to start using that. That's a quite diplomatic phrase that everyone should adopt. So Astra, tell us, you got 10 states again. So I know that your job is quite expansive, but you've done a bit of cataloging yourself with the community, not only the population itself, but you know, some of the collaborative agreements that you've had, particularly on education. I know that you've done a lot of work in that regard over the past few years.
Yeah, absolutely. We find that when you look across the southeastern United States, we find that we have a high concentration of students in the South. A lot of them are student athletes, but many of them are going to school for things like agriculture. A lot are merging into the STEM fields, and so we're really happy about that. Particularly because it's something that we're promoting back home. And so there's lots of opportunities for us to have those students graduate and come home and find meaningful employment. And so I would say that the highest concentration of our population is going to be the student population. Apart from that, and understanding that the Bahamas is a fairly small nation, we have about roughly 400,000 people in total in our nation. You'd find that the Southeast is going to be about in the 10,000 persons range for how many Bahamians are living in the region. This is also the second highest region, right after Miami and Florida. So the consulate does see quite a few Bahamians, but I think if we take it in relation to the Jamaican population or the Haitian population, or maybe even the Guyanese, it would be hard to compare, you know? And so that is one of the reasons why we focus so heavily on our educational institutions that are here, knowing them, knowing who they are, understanding what their specialities are, and seeing ways that we can find synergies with what is going on with economic development in the Bahamas.
Yeah, and I remember you sort of have a kind of an outreach to professionals and sort of trying to figure out how to get these professional Bahamians kind of engaged back home.
Yeah.
How has that been going?
So it's going good. The problem is we've had a massive hurricane in 2019 and then the pandemic in 2020. But I think more so now that effort is going to be kind of raised on the agenda because we need to recover and recuperate in terms of the what we've lost economically. Our tourism industry shut down. I know we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I think more than ever, the diaspora can be harnessed now to think of innovative ideas for how we can recover, how we can diversify, and how we can make these cross-national relationships that will benefit both of our countries.
Yeah. Well, you brought up tourism, and I kind of want to loop that into the COVID conversation because I think, given that, not, and again, we should know that all of your economies are more diverse than tourism, right? It's not just beaches. But at the same time, that is a huge source of foreign influx of foreign capital every year for the most part. So, it seems like it could have been easy at the outset with COVID to say, hey, we're islands, let's shut the borders and keep everybody out. At the same time, you're again reliant and connected and relying on the connectivity and capital that comes with tourism. So how did each of your countries kind of manage the balance between health and economic impact? And then, how is that health collaboration sort of shown itself in your particular country's relationship with Georgia? And maybe start with Astra since we went to you last, and then we'll kind of go bounce back around.
Sure. We have a prime minister who is a trained physician. And so when COVID struck, I think we made a very decisive step to close the borders. We'll worry about tourism kind of secondary. It was a bold move because our country, I think more so than my colleagues who are on the line here, our country is probably the most reliant on tourism. So today we can see the very stark economic impact that that's had on us with having the tourism industry shut down completely. But conversely, we've seen our numbers of the infection rates go down. We've been able to open our borders. We started very, very early to put in the type of infrastructure that we needed to be able to test people, to be able to vaccinate people nowadays. And so I would say that, a year later, our COVID recovery, our COVID operations are running like a very well-oiled machine. And the Bahamas has one of the highest ratings for safety in terms of traveling to the Caribbean today. I believe we were rated third in the country, third in the region for safety protocols. So I think there was some positives and negatives to it, but overall we took the step to close it down, get a hold of it. We understood that our health infrastructure was quite weak and would not be able to handle a massive outbreak, which we were able to avoid. And so today we're well on the way to opening up our tourism industry again.
Roudelyne, how has Haiti handled that so far? Health infrastructure everywhere is being tested right now. And I know that Haiti's had a lot of collaborations here in Atlanta with various institutions to kind of bolster the healthcare capacity of the country. And that was actually the subject of some of our reporting when we went down there, looking at, again, all the nonprofits that were working there and things like that. But how did Haiti handle this kind of dichotomy of needing to stay open and connected, but while also ensuring that your healthcare system is not overloaded?
Well, Haiti is known for its beautiful beaches, its attractive touristic sites. And of course, the economy relies on that. And like of most of the countries, the pandemic has made the situation very difficult or even worse for Haiti. However, because of the country has been less affected by the COVID than other, countries, the local economy did not shut down for a long period of time. So local tourism has resumed, especially during this spring break. And I can say the international travel has yet to pick up because not a lot of people are traveling right now, and I need to say also that Haiti is currently facing a political situation that also affect the tourism and industry. Mm-hmm. And the government continue to make every effort to have an open dialogue with the opposition, because the opposition leaders, they want him to step down before its term, which will be in 10 months. Right. So it's an unfortunate situation, which has caused some, country like the United States to place travel restriction on Haiti. But I really expect that our continuous effort to quickly get off this list, because it's very affect our, tourism industry, and we really rely on that for our economy. Yeah, so that's our unfortunate situation.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
It was sad.
Well, and I tend to think of tourism in terms of, flying in from Atlanta, right? Like I've got this Atlanta-centric lens, but there's a lot of, cruise tourism and things like that that's really been shut down as well, because I don't know if, it seems like ancient history now when, the cruise ships were kind of the petri dishes, the little incubators for COVID, and it started spreading it around the world early on. So I'm sure that's going to be slow to recover. But Elaine, how are things looking from Jamaica's perspective? And one thing we should mention is that each country has its own regulations, and then the U.S. has its regulations in terms of how do you get back into the country. And I know there have been some recent changes to that protocol where you have to get a positive test before coming back to the U.S., which means in the country you have to have testing capabilities to be able to provide to the travelers so that they can get back. So how is that looking in Jamaica right now, Elaine?
Yeah, well, Mr. Williams, I think the Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, has done an excellent job with keeping the tourist sectors contamination free. I have to applaud him for that, because that's not easy. And basically what that was is how they did it was the Minister of Health, Mr. Tufton, and also the Minister of Tourism. They had very strict protocols from the beginning. So they actually had shut down the country in terms of you could not enter Jamaica. And now that they have opened the country up, the Prime Minister, they have strict testing protocols. And, this has been proved, because my sister is over there and she'll say, oh, I can't believe this. I got tested in America, tested in Jamaica, tested by the hotel, tested. The computer comes on if I go out of the region. And so Jamaica has it together. Because of that, Jamaica is right now beyond 50% recovery. They are seeing close to 50 to 60% tourists returning to Jamaica. The hotels are pretty full. And so I applaud the quick action of the government in Jamaica.
Well, one of the dimensions, as far as I understand, has been health collaboration. I know that the Atlanta sister city with Montego Bay has had a long-standing exchange on healthcare. But I guess what have you learned about the needs of your health system, and how Atlanta, as a global health center, really with the CDC and Emory and some of these other institutions, Morehouse School of Medicine, which does a lot of work in the Caribbean, from what I understand. How can we strengthen collaborations? Like what opportunities does this period present? I don't know if Elaine, you want to start with that and maybe outline some of the things that have been done between Atlanta and Jamaica so far.
Sure. As soon as we heard about the pandemic, Jamaica, the Jamaicans in Georgia jumped in place, and we started to assist Jamaica. As you indicated earlier, Montego Bay sister cities have been sending supplies there. All of the high schools, we have many groups here, you know, in the Jamaican diaspora, and every group has been on top of it. I personally know physicians who have brought supplies to Jamaica, and they continue to collaborate with the Minister of Health, who is Dr. Tufton, who is in talks with me frequently to make sure that our collaboration continues to grow and continues to be successful as we try to slow the pandemic down, and eventually, you know, it will be gone.
Yeah. Astra, I want to kind of bring you in on this because I think there's a multidimensional thing going on with the Bahamas, because for one, you know, you had, like we said, the hurricane, and you mobilized the community here. I mean, you got some nonprofits that donated warehouse space. You kind of had, this was a very goods centric, you know, campaign at the beginning. You had items that you were collecting from all over the state, and you had to get them down to the Bahamas. Of course, you know, COVID is a different type of situation, but I'm sure you still had folks that wanted to contribute and help out. So what, I guess, compare those two situations for us, and tell us what you've sort of learned about the diaspora community's willingness to help, and the broader Atlanta community's willingness to help in terms of health collaboration.
We learned a lot from the hurricane. The effort that was mobilized out of the Southeast was massive. But I think one of the greatest lessons we learned is how readily are these items able to be transferred into the Bahamas from Atlanta. When we look at what happened during the hurricane, we used a lot of our partners like Delta Airlines and some of the other private airlines that were going over. And barring that, we used a lot of transshipment. So we were trucking things down to Florida and having them shipped into the Bahamas to various islands that way. And so one of the greatest lessons that we learned is that if we can mobilize the Florida community and kind of channel everything through there, then it would kind of lessen the burden that we had to do here, in not only from the consulate, but from the diaspora's perspective as well. So we have a system now where we work very, very well with the Miami consulate to make sure that people who are interested in supporting the effort are being funneled through Miami, where the ports are and the very long-standing relationships are, that gets an easy access into the Bahamas that way. And I think that the system has worked much better. We do have a great concentration of hospitals and doctors, Bahamian doctors, that are here in Atlanta and in our region, and they have band together, and a lot of them have flown over to the Bahamas to assist with the health effort there. A lot of them are working with our central hospital and our hospital administrative authority. And so we have not seen the interest in assisting the Bahamas decrease. What we have seen is that we've gotten a little bit smarter about how to make the help that people want to give effective.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's always been, you know, the challenge. And maybe, I don't know if Roudelyne, if we've lost you, I hope not, but if you could pop back in at some point and talk about this, you know, because with Haiti, again, after the earthquake, there was a huge outpouring of aid, right? And the big challenge was coordinating it, making sure it gets to the right people and is used for the right purposes. And there were, consulates have such a key role to play in being that coordinator or that clearinghouse for all this information, not only goods, but information, really. And, you know, we hope to be helpful in that regard at times when we can, getting the word out to the broader community. So,
hi, everyone.
Hi, Marva. Marva, give us a little bit of background about yourself and about diaspora community, the Guyanese diaspora community here in Metro Atlanta.
Okay, where do I start? Let me start by saying thank you for having us on. This is such a great way to end the Women Histories Month.
For sure.
Well, I met Trevor 2015. He was my first to interview me when I became honorary consul. It was a rainy day like today, and we have been in contact since. My background, as Trevor knows, and Consul General from the Bahamas knows, my background is community counseling, mental health. My job entails most of the consular duties in my community, lots of consular duty. And because of the pandemic, or I should say, secondary to the pandemic, it has increased to more social concerned with our nationals.
Yeah.
It's the hunger, it's the homeless. Of course, Trevor, you know, and to the rest of the audience, it's I'm unable to visit the jail, but I still get calls from time to time. So like today, I apologize for coming on late. I couldn't get on one, and I didn't finish my last client until when I got a notification from my dear friend, Consul General from the Bahamas, saying we're waiting on you. And so I couldn't disappoint you guys. Well, but it's been a challenge for all of us, a big challenge, a huge challenge. I worked from home from March until July. I came back out and I've been flooded every day flooded. So I'm still flooded with nationals trying to come in, but we have to stagger them to come in. But well, the impact of the pandemic has been great.
Yes. Well, one of the things that we were talking about is just the disparity in kind of population size and the different countries that we're talking to here. Give us a bit of a geography lesson on Guyana. Of course, you're not an island. You're part of the sort of Caribbean community, but you're part of South America as well. So give us a sense of where Guyana is and what the population is and what's going on right now with the economy. I just want to set a quick baseline before we move on.
Certainly. Guyana, of course, is not in the Caribbean, and you are right, but we associate with the Caribbean. They are our closest allies. Even though we're in South America, we're the only English-speaking country in South America. Guyana does not have 1 million people. I think our population might be 700 and something thousand. It is small for such a country of 83,000 square miles. So that's I think we're more population out of Guyana that are in Guyana at the moment. Guyana, as well, let me say that, as you all know, Guyana, we just had an election last year, March, and we're still fighting that election. We do have a government installed, and there's back and forth. Of course, I can't get involved in the politics, but you can't help but hearing. Nevertheless, so we do have a new government in as of March of last year. And there too, we were shut down for some time. We have opened up back. We're still open up back. Some of our neighboring countries have not opened up as yet. But that's where we are with our nationals.
Yes, and from what I understand, the big news on the economic front is the oil exploration in Guyana. Apparently, large reserves have been discovered, and that's leading to sort of a gold rush of sorts in the oil sector. Is that a fair characterization?
You're accurate. Well, the gold and the diamond has always been there, but it seems like it's more prominent now, but it does not take the place of the gas and oil. The gas and oil, even though it may be challenging now for investors to go in, they're doing their best to do what they want. There's a lot of, they're in preparation for what is to come. Right. But we do have a vast, almost every week is a new oil find or a new this find or a new that find. As they're saying, Guyana is going to be the next Singapore. I'm hoping that is so, and we can come out of our poverty and get onto the prosperity lane for all of our citizens. And as Guyana has 6 races. I don't know if you're aware of that. I am a background of a multicultural race because I'm from the Amerindian side, but we do have Indian, East Indian, Amerindian, Black, Chinese, Portuguese, and white. So we're a cosmopolitan thought, like I guess most of the Caribbean is.
Why don't we go right now to Elaine? I wanted to ask you, since we're kind of on the business topic now, your Prime Minister Holness, visited Atlanta not too long ago, and I got a great picture of you with him on our website, which I was excited about. But I got to interview him over the phone, and he was very bullish on potential trade ties between Georgia and Jamaica. And I know Jamaica is a big logistics hub in the Caribbean. Tell us a bit about opportunities for potential business collaboration between Georgia and Jamaica at this moment, and how you might build on his visit.
Yes, since the Most Honorable Andrew Holness came to Georgia to visit 3 years ago, the invitation from the Jamaica Chamber, we have had a lot of progress in terms of collaborations. For example, the JAMPRO, which is the Jamaica Promotions Group, they actually started with Mr. Sutherland, headed by Mr. Sutherland, a group that will collaborate with Georgia directly regarding importation and exportation. And for Jamaica, our main produce would be mangoes, papayas, kiwis, avocados, and vegetables. We are very interested in getting more information from Georgia to see what are the best agricultural products that you'd like us to export to Jamaica. But we have a solid team, which JAMPRO will be looking at, and also they have already put persons in place.
Great, sounds good. I know many countries across the region have become kind of centers for either call centers or things like that, and technology. Elaine, talk about your efforts to link the technology scene between Georgia and Jamaica. And I want to go from there back to Astra and ask her about that, because I know that's been a strong push on the Bahamian side as well.
Yes, yeah, Jamaica has really done a lot of work with technology. And for example, through the Elaine Bryan Foundation, we have partnered for many years now, over 7 years, with the University of the West Indies. And that partnership meant that we supply some of the students with the computers. And in the 2020, we had a big push for scholarships to go to Jamaica for computers for every child. And actually there's a Consul General in New York who is actually promoting that as well, where one computer, one child, with the Ministry of Education in Jamaica. However, from Georgia end, we are pushing promotion of the BPOs, the KPOs. We have great call center opportunity for Georgian investors. We could go on and on, because these call centers are well organized. And so you just make sure that you sign up to www.jamaicanconsulate.atlanta.org. We are very big in technology. Technology has helped me to serve efficiently during the pandemic. We are on Twitter, Facebook, we do Instagram. My husband actually is an IT director, and it has been a big help to have Gregory during the pandemic, kind of managing this for me while I'm on the road, helping, on the ground.
I need a Gregory at my house too, I think. So Astra, I wanted to go to you. You did a big investment summit here in Atlanta at one of the law firms over at Atlantic Station, and you had big time officials from the Bahamas visiting, including I think the agricultural minister. So talk about some of those strategic sectors that you're looking into, and some of the reforms that y'all have made over the past few years that make it more favorable for investors.
Sure thing. So I'll start off by for the value of the people on our call who don't know, the Bahamas is one of those countries that are importing more things than we are creating and exporting. So with specifics to our food and what we are able to grow, what we have the capacity to grow, we're importing about 90% of the food that we eat. And it's a major push of this administration to change that and kind of turn the tides on agriculture in our country. And so a part of that initiative that happened about two or 3 years ago now was to investigate the region and understand what are the opportunities that exist for changing our outlook on agriculture. And since then, we've started quite a few favorable initiatives. One of them, right off the top, is how do we get more students into universities to study agriculture so that they understand the mechanics of how to grow food in our climate? And that push has yielded quite a bit of fruit. There are several major scholarship funds that are available today for Bahamian students wanting to study agriculture in particular to come to the Southeast, particularly North and South Carolina for agriculture.
Mm.
And then secondly, we have a massive undertaking of what's called a backyard farming program, where kits are being given out to homes that helps them with seedlings and helps them to understand how our climate works with the various fruits and vegetables that we're able to grow. So there's this kind of citizen participation happening now to get people to understand the value of agriculture. Our Bahamas Marine and Agricultural Institute, BAMSI, has gotten a great capital injection of funding from the central government to be able to strengthen its agriculture program. One of our largest islands, Andros, where the BAMSI Institute is located, has been fortified and kind of strengthened, particularly during the pandemic and during everything that we had going on with Hurricane Dorian, to make sure that there's some kind of resiliency being put in place and the infrastructure is being put in place to ensure that we can feed ourselves. And coupled with that, I think the last time we talked, Trevor, I told you about our first ever SBDC, so Small Business Development Center. The region has many of them. It's a long-term policy that's been going on in the United States for a very, very long time. But in the Bahamas, this is the first time we've had an agency that was particularly geared towards helping to grow entrepreneurialism in the country. And out of that, I believe it's maybe 3 or 4 years old now. And out of that, we've seen quite a few entrepreneurs be able to find that funding that they needed to venture into the agricultural industry. So what we have now are farmers who are farming out of trailers and who are using hydroponics and various lighting technologies to grow fruits and vegetables that we once perceived not our country not be able to produce. And so the agricultural industry in the Bahamas, while still rudimentary, it's clear to see the growth in the industry, and it's clear to see that the infrastructure is being laid, that the foundation is being laid to have that at least be sustainable. The market is ripe for it because we have so many of the tourist centers, we have so many of the hotels that need fresh fruits and vegetables, and there is some added value to having the food that's presented to you be grown directly from a local farm, right?
Yeah, for
and
sure.
so I'm happy about that progress. But I think one of the other things that we talked about when we had the summit here in Atlanta was this idea of a tech hub and the Caribbean's first almost Silicon Valley be placed on Grand Bahama Island in the northern part of the Bahamas. And that has taken shape quite well. There are some agreements being forged right now with major universities to have hubs in Grand Bahama that would help us to really fortify a community, a little ecosystem that would help with technology. In addition to that, we do have some legislation that's being drafted right now that will allow for persons from India, persons from China, persons from the United States to be able to reside in the Bahamas for a set period of time if they fall into certain STEM fields that can build and grow our tech industry. And so those things make me very proud.
Well, thank you so much for that overview. That's really great. Yeah, the tech hub that you're trying to create to me was very interesting given our strengths here in Atlanta and things like fintech and cybersecurity and issues like that. And just the proximity when you talk about flights in the Bahamas is what, 2 hours away. It's not, there's no real hurdle to get there for sure. I think we're running up on our time, on my time. I want to turn it over to the audience to have them ask a few questions. We've already seen a few coming in the chat. I wanted to use my moderator prerogative to ask one more quick question that I think is really timely. And maybe it could open up a huge can of worms here at the end. But, we're in a time in the U.S. Of
Hi, Trevor.
awakening.
Hi, Trevor.
Yes.
Before
Yes.
we go to the question, I want to highlight something
Sure.
related to business, because the consulate has developed, relationship with the Outfield Jackson International Airport.
Mm-hmm.
So we just had the grand opening of a big project, the Transcending More to Haiti Than You Know. I think it's really important that I let you guys know that we have that project, like the exhibit art, Asian art, in the Concourse E at the airport. So I think it will be very great to everybody to go when you are in the airport to to check that, because I think it can help you understand or discover Haiti, and maybe have the idea to go to Haiti, to visit Haiti.
Definitely, I know, and I'm not trying to skip over you, because I know Haiti's got a lot going on in terms of manufacturing as well. That given its relatively large population, it really helps. You got a larger labor pool than some other countries in the region, and so I know there's plenty of opportunity. But the question I wanted to ask is, I'll try to get to it quickly. Basically, we're at a time of racial reckoning here in the U.S., right? And I think I've talked to a lot of you separately, particularly Astra. We talked about the connections between MLK and the Bahamas, and so I wanted to see if y'all might want to comment on where you see each of your countries sort of linking up with the struggle of Black Americans, right, at this moment in time, particularly when it comes to equity and economic empowerment. Do y'all have any comments you want to share with us on that front? I'll let whoever go ahead if you want. Maybe just wave at me or hide if you don't want to answer it.
Sorry, I was answering a question in the chat, Trevor.
That's okay.
Can you repeat the question? I'm happy to.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, I feel like obviously, we're at a time of reckoning on race relations, right, in the United States right now. And, I know each country's experience with that is different, right? Haiti, the first Black republic, Jamaica had its Maroons, the Bahamas, you had your own struggles for independence. So I wondered if, given that you are representing, your countries in a place like Atlanta, which has a strong Black community and heritage and civil rights, I wonder if there are any comments you wanted to make on how you see the struggles of your countries maybe paralleling or providing some linkages with the struggle here, and has that become kind of a touch point for you?
I think it has. I think the Bahamas, we call ourselves the other gateway to the United States, right? So, the common phrase in the Bahamas is, when America sneezes, we catch a cold. And so we watch very, very closely the things that happen in the United States, and we have such very rooted ties that when people hurt in the United States, we hurt in the Bahamas, and we have so many people that have some portion of their lives that was spent here, and some portion of their lives that are spent in the Bahamas, that we feel very deeply for the things that this country goes through. And I think vice versa as well. We see that in the relationships when we're experiencing hard times, how Americans kind of outreach to us to help. And so while I think as consul generals and as diplomats, we have to be very careful about not necessarily casting judgment or blame on a country and what they're going through, I think it's important to understand that none of us are without our own struggles. And that there are ways that we can get involved and we can help. And I think that, here in Atlanta, we held a private conversation between Bahamians, the Bahamian diaspora here, the Junkanoo group. We got on the phone, and after the riots that happened in Atlanta, and we just checked in with everybody to see how people are doing. A lot of people were upset, or they had these very deep rooted feelings that we wanted to talk through and work through with them. So I think in our own enclaves, we need to work with our diasporas to have them understand what's taking place in the United States, how things are changing in the US, and particularly in Georgia. Georgia has been such a fireball of activity in the past just 2 to 3 years. So I think it's an interesting time for us as diplomats, or for me as a diplomat at least, to watch what's going on here and how Georgia has kind of taken a front and center stage to the fight, to learn as much as I can from it and to find those commonalities and bring them back home. I think one of the things that I'm learning so much about is the female struggle and how I can impact change when I go back to the Bahamas. I've become very passionate about that. And I've been able to make connections with women who are at the forefront of these struggles, and to understand that, yes, the fight is different in the Bahamas, but there are so many things that I can learn and take back and try to change when I go home. So I just think, what a time to be alive, what a time to be engaged. And I'm taking it all in.
Yeah, good. I really want to hear everybody else's, but I don't want to let this derail us completely from all the questions that are coming in, because I feel like I've already monopolized the time with my questions. So I want to go to some of the Q&As. Someone asked, as a Trinbagoniana Guyanese Atlantan, this panel makes me so happy. Could you speak to the impact of remote learning during quarantine from the perspective of students and educators? Are there any initiatives supporting access to digital devices? I think Elaine talked about that with her community and providing laptops in Jamaica. But I wanted, maybe Marva, I wonder, since you've interacted so much with students and you've got such a strong sense for the mental health aspects of things and how remote work may have affected people, do you see that happening both locally and in Guyana, that remote learning is accessible but sometimes challenging? I got to ask you to unmute. Hold on one sec.
Accessible, however, it can be a challenge as well. Being in the school system and we have physical contact with our kids, it was a challenge. Now that we have to do remote learning, it is even more a challenge, both here and at home. Because of the pandemic, again, everyone had to shut down. The challenges for most parents, I don't know about other countries, is that most parents does not have the wherewithal for the children to even study at home using their remote learning system that they've put in place, because they don't have the necessary tools to help the kids. So we're facing challenges even here, and more so at home, because I don't think everyone at home, every child at home has a laptop. And we're challenged with the constant blackouts in Guyana and what have you not. In this country, the parents don't have the means to help their children. So we're at a crossroad for lots of challenges. As I was hearing everybody was talking, what came to mind, I would like to do a drive to help the kids with some laptops. But then again, it's the parents who can't afford the internet services. Yeah. So we're faced with that challenge. But as everyone was speaking, that's what came to mind, that I would like to help with the kids, the parents, especially that don't have the means to get a laptop. And then of course, they don't have the internet services. But like I said, it's a challenge even when I was in the classroom. It's been a challenge because instead of them learning, they get on the laptop and want to play games. Now, when you're not there and the parents are not there, who is watching them? Exactly. Yeah, it's a struggle for everybody, for sure. Yes. And hopefully, with more vaccinations on the rise, we'll have the ability to kind of get back to in person in a more real way. So I wanted to move to another question we had from Randy Scoville. He says, are there any opportunities to identified for reducing carbon emissions or dependency on imported oil and gas? I know this is kind of a struggle
across a lot of countries. I know the Bahamas has done some things on renewable energies. I'm sure everybody on this panel probably has. But he says, I would think there are plenty of opportunities for ocean-based electrical generation, like, where the, kind of waves generate the energy. And so what actions are your countries taking, and are there Georgia companies that are involved with this so far? Well, it looks like we got some work to do on that then. I do know of some companies, some companies that are doing some things in the Caribbean. And I should note that we will place certain links, and if the consuls general want to share anything with the attendees, we can send that out in our follow-up emails. And also, if you have questions, you can ask us, and we can kind of relay them to the consulates. But we'll also include contact information so you can reach the consulates directly. So Dr. Georgette Fraser Moore says, as a member of the Jamaican diaspora and a business owner, how can we successfully find opportunities to do business with Jamaica and other Caribbean islands? I guess maybe Elaine, someone who's starting out and looking to do business in Jamaica, like what's kind of their starting point? How should they focus on that? Whether they're a member of the diaspora or whether they're someone from Georgia looking at the opportunity there.
Yes, as I said earlier, Mr. Sutherland from JAMPRO, they have started a group where we will be working directly with persons in Georgia who are trying to invest in Jamaica. So if this person who is asking the question would like to get more information about the JAMPRO initiative, could you email info@jamaicanconsulateatlanta.org. Get familiar with the consulate website, because a lot of these questions, you'll get the answer on that site because it's being updated daily. Thank you so much.
We'll put that information in the follow-up email as well. I wanted to ask, one more question from Obse Babia. She says, how would you like to be engaged with universities in Atlanta? And I think that's probably a good place to end. I'm sorry we're not able to get to all of the questions, but I think that's probably a good, hopeful, and productive spot to end on. I don't know if anybody wants to take that first.
Well, I can take that, since I think we've done a lot of work towards engaging universities. I see new ways of getting involved with universities just about every day. At our consulates, at this consulate, one of the things that we are now looking at is how we can improve our communications. And so finding Bahamian students primarily, but also students who are graduating from the field of communications and information technology, and offering internship opportunities for them at our consulates is one of the big initiatives that we have going on this year. And I think it does two things. It keeps our consulates at the cutting edge of communicating with young people. We want to make sure that we know who young people are and how to talk to them. And I think the other initiative that we have is finding ways that we can have cultural exchanges between our countries. I think COVID has made that very difficult, but this is still a really great time for us to understand, how has the digital age or digitization during COVID, how has that changed the ability for us to talk and collaborate and communicate? In the Bahamas, the way we want to interact with universities is that we want professors to be able to have exchange opportunities. We also want our Bahamian students to be engaged in what the things are that are going on in the United States. So we're always looking for new ways to talk to many universities. The more of them that we have on our radar, the better. We're on a massive undertaking to get more of our students educated and to develop our workforce. And so I'm happy to talk to any university about that.
Great, sounds good. Well, thank y'all so much for joining us. And I did want to mention that we had one disqualified Caribbean honorary consul on the call, David Cutting, because he's a man. So, but we did want to acknowledge that David's here with us, and David also a very dynamic former banker who's been very active across Africa and really globally minded, and very strong voice for Barbados in the community here. And just want to acknowledge that he's here with us. Thank you, David. And thank you all so much again for your time. I really feel like this was a great conversation. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Again, we'll be following up with the consuls and try to get some information to include in the follow-up email to all the participants. Really appreciate y'all joining us, and hopefully we will be able to invite y'all back in person at some point in the near future. Thanks to everybody. Bye.
Thank you for having the Haitian consulate.
Thank you for having us.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.